Yo guys, it's Matrix here, bringing you part two of the weekly rankings. This week we're covering week three of the Johto Division. I'm joined by both Masenko, Bryan, and Oddball. Um, you can go check out part one, which is on my channel. So today I'm bringing you the second part of the ranking video, which is basically going to be covering the weekly predictions for what's coming up in week four, and we go in a little bit of depth of the what we expect. People are now looking out to maybe want to make some trades, so we give some suggestions and have a look at the matchups for this upcoming week. This little intro bit is post-recorded, so I'll basically just allow the discussion will be flowing on from where we hit off last time. So, without further ado, I'll let past me and past Masenko take it away.
We move on to the week 4 predictions.
Woo-hoo.
And we can't really say too much about this first one, which is the London Lucaris versus the Bavarian Landers. And that's because I believe the match has already been played.
But we
But
can kind of analyze it still, I think.
yeah, we can definitely talk about it a little bit. I would just go out and say that I expect the Landers to figure out a way to prevent the Lucarios.
Yeah.
I
I think
haven't
he's
actually
got
watched
so
the
many
match yet.
ways to do it. Because he's got Sableye taunt, you can use safety goggles or something, you can use Urshifu, I think it gets taunt
Ooh.
even. You can just Wicked Blow the Dusclops.
Yes.
Like, there's just so much stuff that you can do.
I think
Yeah.
it can one-shot a Dusclops, depending on the investments on either side.
Yeah. I think, because
Bavarian Landers does have Fake Out, and I think I think you have to run Choice Band on Urshifu in order to guarantee the Oko.
Yeah.
But like even still, that's a very real possibility, considering like Dusclops is one of the few things, if not the only thing, that can set Trick Room.
I think this matchup is in particular quite difficult for the London Lucarios, just, even considering that they've had difficult matchups in general, just because of they don't, their team isn't where it needs to be right now exactly. Or their prep or whatever, whatever things they've been struggling with. But I think this is particularly difficult because the Bavarian Landers have a very aggro team, right? And Trick Room suffers against aggro because you need to create room to be able to even set up the Trick Room, right? And if you're sitting there faced with a Sableye Charizard right there, you gotta wonder if they can kill your guy, right?
I just noticed how weak the London Lucarios team is to Charizard.
Yeah, that too. It's just you have so much aggro. You have, Sableye, you got Urshifu, you got Charizard, you got Latias, who's super fast and can do a lot of damage. Not as much as Latios, but obviously still a decent amount. You got just so much. There's so much aggro here that you just have to be scared of.
Yeah. And it's not just that either. The London Lucario, it's not just that Charizard has so much against them. It's the case of they don't have anything for the Charizard.
Right.
They've got Azumarill, but Gastrodon.
Right.
So Sandaconda, but it's not really the most reliable mon against a Charizard when Charizard gets stuff like Max Overgrowth. So I think it's a massively uphill battle for the Lucarios, not just on the defensive side of trying to set Trick Room with Dusclops, but also if they do set Trick Room, well, even their mons in Trick Room aren't doing that much to the Landorus team.
You know what I would consider this week, if I were them. I know the game's already been played out, so I guess this isn't really too much of a advice either way. But I might have honestly gone max Dusclops with copycat Purloin.
Yeah.
And just weakness policy, maybe I'm pretty sure Purloin has some kind of move.
Yeah, it does. It has Sucker Punch.
Yeah, I would have done that, and I would have just gone in on this Charizard with
And
the super
Dusclops
big.
gets rock slide, so
Yeah, just like max rockfall it. Yeah, that's
yeah.
what I would have probably.
The only
Um,
issue there though is that it's still weak to like if you were to do weakness policy Dusclops, it can't take hits from Urshifu. And that's
uh,
the only other issue.
you also get Trick Room up, right? Like with the prankster strategy, right? You just like get an immediate Trick Room other than by fake out disrupting it. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that's just like that seems pretty decent. Obviously, you need to build a team around that idea that helps like deal with a couple of those things, right? The Urshifu, the fake out from like what 3 different sources, maybe just 2. Yeah, that would have been an interesting strategy to see this week.
So looking at this team though, I still believe that the Bavarian Wanderers would take the win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Lucarios have the experience yet to be able to take it.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for the Landorus.
Yeah. So before we move on, looking at these two teams now, we're 3 weeks in, going into our fourth. What suggestions do you guys think could be made in terms of trades?
I want London Lucarios to find a way to implement some sort of speed beyond Trick Room, and B, I want some sort of follow me instead of Rage Powder, maybe, if possible. Simply because Rage Powder can be ignored by so much, and like literally anything with safety goggles, all grass types. I think even bug types ignore it, but I'm not sure on that
No,
one.
just grass types.
Yeah,
Just grass.
yeah.
Safety goggles. I don't know if they're going to be able to find any.
But yeah, that's the thing though, because like all we've got is Togekiss taken? It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it's
100%.
Togepi is still available in Tier 3.
Yeah, Togepi is
Is
available,
it?
and honestly, it might not be a horrible option.
Problem is,
And then we were talking about Excalibur for Shiinotic, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so the other issue that we have with the Togepi is that you'd have to be sashing it a lot of the time with the Dusclops, because of which isn't bad. There is ways of circumventing, because of obviously you're fighting Eviolite with Dusclops as your setter.
Yeah.
So that is one issue of having like Togepi, and I'm not sure, but I'm pretty like Togepi's defenses are pretty low, and if you've got a multi-hitting move, it could probably break the sash and kill it.
Yeah.
The other option here for the London Lucarios, other than redirection, would just to be to find ways to enable your more mid-tier, like mid-speed tier Pokemon. He has a lot of those, right? He's the Azumarill, who can be a pretty devastating Pokemon if set up correctly. Sandaconda, I mean, I don't know how good Sandaconda is in practice, but it's got 71 speed, and if you can find a way to get it to outspeed stuff, I'm sure it could do a little bit of something.
I think it gets access to stuff like Scale Shot, which can help it.
It does, yeah.
It does have Scale Shot,
which is kind of interesting. I saw, I think it was Guma22 who's in the Sinnoh division, and he's using Sandaconda Gmax, and that's why he used. But he used coaching into Sandaconda as well.
I think another interesting thing. Another interesting thing could be like quite literally Tailwind. Just because you would be hitting over 100 with quite a few of your mons, over base 100 speed. You get Sandaconda, Azumarill. You can even run like Shell Smash Turtonator. I don't think he's done that yet.
Yeah, I
Chain
like
growth goes faster.
I like
crafty too.
Torkoal.
Sorry.
I know that Tangrowth still exists. And like you can make it super fast in Sun with the Torkoal, right? Because it does get chlorophyll, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
But there's also like, I don't know. I also feel like there's a little bit of redundancy there with the Turtonator. In terms of like,
So
and I think you could get I think like if you want a really good tailwind setter, Talon Flame is still available. Super fast, fire type if you want to cover that fire weakness, or that fire mon that you'd be trading. Still a tier 1, so all of that's pretty solid. That's just initially what I'd think, but there's probably still other options too. Look
I
at that.
actually think that if he was to trade away anything here, I would be looking at Turtonator and Shiinotic. He's already got a fire type.
I really quite like Turtonator, even over
I
Torkoal.
really don't. I think Turtonator needs too much setup. It's too dependent on setup. And yeah, he could get it set up with Tangrowth a bit, but
well, think about this,
I don't know.
right?
I think it's difficult.
Like Turtonator can actually sit behind the Tangrowth because the one type that resists the Rage Powder is grass, right? And that just kind of Turtonator just kind of laps at grass.
Mhm.
The obviously the other thing would be like safety goggles, which anything can run, obviously, but like you're at least covering that with the Turtonator setting up behind Tangrowth, and also Tangrowth like can be a carry in that lead as well. I think, or like a yeah, like Turtonator plus Tangrowth. Like Turtonator could actually be more supportive of the Tangrowth in that case too, potentially. Like I think that's a kind of an interesting, scary, bulky lead, especially since Tangrowth is more physically defensive, whereas Turtonator I think is more specially defensive. Like they kind of cover each other in that way as well. Whereas with Torkoal, like I see the chlorophyll, like the budget Venusaur combo there. But I also think that it's like super redundant because if you really want a fire type under Trick Room, Turtonator might just be better. Better typing in my opinion. Like the dragon helps a lot. And it resists fairy because of its fire typing, right? So you already have that covered.
Well, it's just neutral to fairy. It doesn't resist it. It's just...
Well, what I mean,
it's neutral, cancels out,
right? Yeah. Which is like really helpful. And once again, I just think like probably suit a little too redundant. So maybe you go for something that can set Tailwind. Maybe you go for something that can somehow enable like Scrafty to potentially be a good carry, something that can enable Azumarill to be a really good carry. Even maybe who knows?
Another important thing with Turtonator is it keeps the fantasy core over Torkoal.
Yeah.
And even still, I might just keep both of them and trade off something like Shiinotic because it's really not.
I do think Shiinotic should be traded away now that he's got Tangrowth. Something I was looking at is, as Bryan mentioned before, was Excelgor could be really good for the team to just provide a mode with Palossand, you know? It's like, we know how devastating that Excelgor Palossand mode can be. It was like, it was everywhere in Series 6, I believe.
You know it's open. Sorry. I just saw Thundurus is open, right? Someone traded away.
Yeah.
Thundurus could be a really good trade for the Torkoal, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Another option I was thinking of is that you've dropped a Mulga now, haven't you?
Yeah, that too. Speed swap.
I was thinking Purloin isn't as necessary as what you'd think. You could, especially with like you've got Scrafty for Fake Out as a dark type. I mean, yeah, it gets Prankster, but honestly, I don't see the inherent value of Purloin's type of Prankster here. But I can see the value of a speed swap of Mulga on his team.
There's other good speed swaps too, potentially.
Yeah, exactly. I think this just anything with speed swap really.
You got like Pheromosa, which could be pretty solid on this team potentially. You've got Alakazam, right? I know Swoobat gets it. That could be okay. I don't necessarily know what tier it is. I haven't really looked into that. But like Pheromosa and Alakazam already seem like pretty solid pickups potentially, like just something to consider.
Definitely. And Alakazam's tier 2 this season, so.
And also Alakazam knows Trick Room, I believe.
Yeah, it does. I've seen support Alakazam work with Trick Room.
Just more options in that regard. Like you could.
At that point, you could do Max Guard Purloin with slow Alakazam.
Yeah, But then Alakazam benefits from that. Or you can just fake that you're doing some speed swap strat and just Trick Room instead, right? Like, all of that seems pretty solid.
And that's a nice trade for Torkoal.
It's inner focus, right? Alakazam, so you can set up.
Yes.
And another thing that you should point out is like Sucker Punch Alakazam is far more efficient than weakness policy like Dusclops.
Yeah. So I think that's some good ideas and suggestions for the London Lucarios.
What about for the Bavarian Landorus?
I'm not sure. He's got a pretty solid team overall, really. I don't think many trades would really shore up what he's lacking at the moment.
They did trade off Thwacky, didn't they?
Yeah, they've traded off Thwacky in week. Oh, to be fair, yes, I think that's a decent trade, but we can get
Tangela.
Yeah, he's just put in for the week 5 trade, so he's got rid of Thwacky for Tangela, which gives him some redirection, which
I like.
It's a pretty good trade, to be honest.
I'd still consider maybe like finding something to replace Haunter.
Yeah.
In this team,
I think Haunter could be pretty decent.
I don't see where.
It's got 110 special attack.
I just think
about that.
Like when you're running Sableye most of the time, like
yeah, I see that.
Haunter, you probably would just like you're kind of running two supporty ghost types, and Sableye is just infinitely better, right?
Is Haunter tier 4?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I can see like him getting a better value tier 4. There's still some around, so yeah. But overall, I don't think there could be much of a change he could make. Just a few. So, who's the next matchup? Oshawotts versus who's your opponent? Somerville Scraggies.
Yep.
God, even I was quicker to that. Okay, so this matchup. Who wants to start?
I could take a go at it. I think this is this is going to be probably my most fun match to watch. I think this is like, I think obviously the Oshawotts Oddball has been pretty dominant in his performances up until this point, and I think that the up and coming like underdog Tyler is going to be kind of a really cool. It's almost like a good story match, right? Like a good good for the drama almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the actual matchup itself, I think this is honestly kind of a little bit of a tough matchup for the Oshawotts, just a little bit. I think like Gudra stands to be pretty strong here. And I also think that Comfey, obviously I don't want to get too much into this because I think that, I don't want to like reveal any strats or anything like that. But I think Comfey is also like hard to stop from Orlando Oshawott side. Like they don't have like a faster fake out, if I'm not mistaken, to deal with it. Or like, yeah. So I think the Gudra Comfey combo is a little scary. And the Zarina is also a little scary to prevent some of the more annoying things you might be able to do with like Whimsicott, for instance. But that said, if you can break past that, I think you position yourself to win this. And it's just going to be a matter of finding a way to break past it. That's just my take on it. Yeah.
It is interesting because the teams actually share a fair few amount of similarities. I mean, you both got the Togekiss, Togetic redirection users. You've both got some beat up mons in the case of Arcanine and Cobalion. You both got 2 water type G Maxes. I know that's a stretch, but there's a lot of similarities between the two teams.
They got one Intimidate on the one Scraggy side. Now that he has Scraggy,
yes, he does.
as opposed to the 2 there. You got fake outs, you got good support mons, you got good trick room. Both of them have good trick room modes potentially with that Regirock. And yeah, I think like both of these teams have so much. It's gonna like that's why I'm so excited for it. There's just so much creativity that could come from these teams this week.
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be difficult for the Oshawots. I think Comfey is the mon to watch because Comfey is the key to enabling every mode he has going for him. Trick room.
Yeah, that's mostly true. I think the Scraggy pickup is actually pretty key here, though, too, as a secondary support mon. Boltund as another support mon, potentially.
Yes, but all of Boltund is outsped by Tailwind mons, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what Boltund's job is. It's fast. Though, to be fair, that's something that is important to note, is that Boltund is competitive and against two Intimidate users.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little cool options here for both teams. And I think that's not as much as I want to say on it, because I don't want to get into like specific strategies that each player could use. Because that would obviously influence the match in a way that I don't think is good.
There is some clear stuff I could say here, which I'm pretty sure both teams are aware of. But I don't think it's probably best left unsaid.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, so in terms of trades, I honestly don't think the Somerville Scraggies need much of trades at the moment. I think they've kind of shored up their stuff, their team a little bit, and I really like this Scraggy trade. So they just done this Scraggy trade this last week, and I think they dropped Bronzor, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and I think Scraggy's a good pickup because of defensively, it's as bulky as what Scrafty is when with holding an Eviolite. So you're getting the same type of bulk as what a Scrafty gets, just at the cost of an item slot. And honestly, Scrafty's really bulky.
Yeah.
Especially with Intimidate, with Scraggy, physical mons are going to have a tough time against it.
I think the team is right now super well rounded.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any issues with it either. I think if anything, they might try to find some room to put Tailwind on the team, but maybe Type Null is something to look at.
Type Null is a good mon.
Like, I know it's a good tier 4, but maybe you can make a couple trades to bump that tier up and make better use of it.
Yeah, now that they have the Scracky. Yeah. They have a lot of tier 3s, tier 4s, so yeah, I see that.
Maybe they go down a tier for is Inteleon a tier 1 Gmax?
Tier 2.
It's a tier 2, huh? Okay. Yeah, there's I mean, I don't think they'd want to drop down for like the remaining 3, but I don't know, something to consider. Maybe Togekiss. I don't know. Togekiss is so strong though, so I don't know. It seems hard to make some trades on this, but
yeah, I think this team's pretty well set at the moment.
You may be able to find one or two. Like maybe something to consider if you're able to fit in like Tailwind or something, like trading Cobalion for like Lucario, the same typing, also gets speed up strategies. That could work, but I don't know. So it's just a suggestion. I don't necessarily think that's optimal.
And then the Oshawots. We've spoken to Oddball prior to this. So
yeah,
I don't know if we really want to go into it, or it's up to you.
You guys are free to talk about it. I think I'll probably make those trades before this video ends up going out. So
that's fair.
Yeah,
I was
yeah. Go ahead, Oddball. Sorry.
No, I mean, you feel free to talk about it first, because I am interested in what you guys think of my team before I make any big announcements, you know.
So I think when we were discussing, we were looking more at like the I think it was the Doublade or Cinccino that we were looking at, weren't we? Maybe the Rotom Wash.
Yeah.
So
yeah, trading Rotom Wash for a lower tiered electric type that could kind of fulfill that sort of strong, fast electric type role potentially, and opening room up for something to bump up like one of his tier 4s. And the reason I think this is actually kind of a good thing, I think Rotom Wash is in that weird gray area between tier 1 and tier 2. Like, I don't think it's like, I think it's better than tier 2, but I don't necessarily know if it's a Pokemon that you want to waste 100 points on, right? And
Especially if it misses every important Hydro Pump, you know?
Yeah, especially if it's like its only stab move is something that you're just gonna miss with bad luck, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that trading Rotom Wash makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if necessarily like I love a Rotom Wash. I think it's an excellent Pokemon, and I think it's like you're always going to do pretty good stuff with it, but like if you're able to get a better tier 1 or like a high value tier 2 and a high value tier 3 from a couple trades off it, then I think that is 100% worth it. You want to get as much value out of your slots as you can. And like for me at least, I think part of the reason that Rotoms don't get picked as much is because like they're so good, but for tier 1, like you're getting so many other better things, right? Like there's so many other things that you would want to use 100 points on.
yeah, and you could probably get a bulky Rotom from one of the lower tiers, like Rotom Frost from tier 3, and it still does similar things to what the Rotom Wash does, only has Blizzard instead of Hydro Pump, you know? Then I think in a way you also want to be looking for either a better steel type than Doublade from like tier 3. Like Doublade is good for a low tier pick, but is it a tier 3 value pick? I beg to differ. You know, I think there's some other good tier 3 steel types even that are still there available. I think we have like Berserker, we have is it Klinklang? I don't know what it's called. The gears.
Aggron, you got
exactly.
You got some pretty good ones out there. Once again, same thing as like the Rotom. It's like Doublade is a good Pokemon for the lower tiers, but is it worth the points that you're spending for it? Like I almost think it's bottom of tier 3, right?
Yeah.
Not quite tier 4 again, but bottom like not quite good enough in tier 3. So I think it's worth a trade potentially. But the rest of the team, I think, is really solid. You might be considering one of your tier 4s bumping up, like Hitmonchan or Cinccino. Both of those are really high value tier 4s, in my opinion. So both of those are solid. And so that'll just come down to, you know, how you want to cover your type resistances and also how you want to, like, if you're going to replace Hitmonchan, you probably want another fake out user. Cinccino, you probably want to, like, find a good support mon because that's like pretty solid a support mon that you're getting rid of. So that's basically it.
Yeah, I do think that out of the two tier 4s that you've got going, like if you wanted to drop Rotom Wash down to a tier 2 and you get a different mon from tier 2, you can swap Doublade for another tier 3 and then bring up like Cincino. I would say drop Cincino. It's okay, but like it doesn't have any inherent synergy in my opinion with the rest of your team. It's good support as in a generic support, but I feel like there could be some better tier 3s that offer more either offense, defense, just better value for your team.
And if you drop Cinccino, Cinccino has After You, which is something that the Lucario's might want to consider picking up.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true.
Not to keep going back to them, but
okay. So let's move on to the next team, because we've finished with these. I don't know out of these two which I expect to win.
I'm gonna give it for me. I'm gonna predict the Oshawotts win this one. I think that overall they've proven that they can go toe to toe with the South Florida Swords, which is a really, really important matchup for them. They lost that one, but like we talked about, it was like very RNG dependent. So we obviously, I think that like very good player, very good prep, and as much as I love watching Tyler play, and like I think his prep has been solid and he's just been gradually improving over time, I'm not sure he's ready to like pull out a win against the Oshawots. Like even if you know what, I can see a 2-1, right? I can see the Scraggies taking a game off the Oshawots, but I think that like in a best of 3, I think the Oshawots come out ahead probably, just based on what I'm looking at.
Whereas I'm inclined to believe the Somerville Scraggies, I think, are going to be the ones to come out on top. That's no disrespect to Oddball at all or anything like that. I think it's going to be incredibly close. But I do think the Somerville Scraggies have the tech to be able to just keep pushing ahead of the Oshawots this week.
Yeah, maybe the better team right now, just because like we've commented on, the Scraggies have such a solid like synergistic team that like you know, and I think the Oshawots can stand to pick up a couple new Pokemon to kind of like freshen up their strategy and give some more options, more synergy. Yeah, even with that, I still think the Oshawots win this one.
That's fair.
Probably 2-1. I'm gonna say 2-1.
That's cool. And I know Oddball's going to have to back his own team.
Yeah, well, I'll try.
So we have the Lily Cove Lycanrocs versus the Charlotte Beedrills. I don't know if Bryan's still there, but I think it's going to be I think on paper it's kind of a difficult matchup for the Beedrills.
Really?
Yes, and my reason for it is the fact that the Beedrills don't have any ice types, right? They have no type of ice type coverage at the moment. Now that means that Salamence and Landorus are a little bit unchecked. The only Watermon that the Beedrills have are Wartortles, so Landorus even more so. Salamence does suffer from the rock types, but if you're cycling double Intimidates, those rock types aren't going to do anything. Just leaves Cradilly. Now, Cradilly is weak to Corviknight. And not Crawdaunt, and Corviknight. So I think on and Magnezone. So I think on paper, the Lycanrocs have the better matchup. The only place that it falters is the fact that they don't really have a way of denying the Trick Room that the Charlotte Beedrills could set if they want to lean into their Trick Room mode. Because they're kind of forced to look at a Trick Room mode due to the fact that their Sand mode is so weak to the double Intimidate.
Another thing to consider is that Magnezone also has Magnet Pull as an ability, which can really disrupt the Excadrill and Bronzong in certain situations if it's used properly, right? Like I think that if both of those Pokemon, well, less so Bronzong, but definitely Excadrill does not want to be caught out of position.
Yeah.
And a Magnezone can really punish that, I think. Even though Excadrill is super effective against the Magnezone, I think like who knows? You pair that with like a Flareon or something else, Crawdaunt. Who knows? You could definitely get some damage off on that Excadrill, make it punish it pretty hard, potentially.
And then you've got the Umbreon, which is a special wall, which leaves Vikavolt. But then you've got Flareon, which has Flareon can easily run stuff like Iron Ball or Room Service to counter a Vikavolt. So I feel like although the Beedrills have something for the Lycanrocs have the options to be able to just counter them and counter them and counter them. So on paper, I'm saying I think the Lycanrocs have the matchup. However, in execution, I do believe the Charlotte Beedrills will win because I don't. Up to this point, I haven't seen the Lycanrocs utilize their team to the advantage that they need.
Yeah, I think the Lycanroc stand to benefit.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll be quick. I think the Lycanrocs could really stand to benefit from some like prep help. I think
Yeah.
from week to week. And once again, like there are plenty of us in this league who are helping each other every week, right? Like I think this is just like we're a very cooperative league, I think, in general. Like I think that all of us are here because we're having fun and we just want to like improve at Pokemon for the most part. So like don't be afraid to ask for help, right? If you don't really know how to prep as keenly as you could. So like, I'm just saying, go ahead, Oddball. My bad.
Oh, you're fine. I just kind of noticed that I think that the potential for Shell Smash War Turtle is kind of here this week.
Oh, damn. That's interesting.
Simply because like you have just gained that redirection mon in Volcarona. I think that was last week that you first got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Tapu Bulu exists.
Well, yeah, but yeah.
You also have to be careful with the white herb, right? Because like if you want to shell smash herb, and the intimidates will get rid of that white herb.
But another thing is you can just run Eviolite because you're removing a -1, which is the same as removing your.
It's not removing a minus. It's almost like, but it's like offsetting a little bit because you're actually reducing a 1.5 by 0.66. So it's not an exact reduction, but it still stands.
It's still potentially better than white herb. Whereas you might want that on something that could offensively pressure Salamence and Landorus.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be. That's what I say. I think if the Lichen Rocks prep well, then it's going to be difficult for the Beedrills. But if they use the same level of prep that they've been showing thus far, I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for the Beedrills. Now, I don't know if that's what you guys agree, but
I tend to agree.
I also kind of agree. I think it's a very specific sort of game plan with cycled intimidates that the Lycanrocs have to find this week. And I'm sure that the Beedrills can find a way to play around that, as well as potentially the Magnet Pull, Magnezone, Tapu Bulu being a threat against your only water type that has like an ice move. Things like that. It's going to be interesting, but I actually do see your point now with how it's quite favorable for the Lycanrocs this week if all goes to plan.
The thing is as well, like they don't necessarily need to rely on having to show up with a double intimidate cycle because it's there in the team matchup. It questions the opposition, like the Beedrills, to go, well, I can't rely on it because if they do, then I'm kind of in a bad position. So they've got to run that risk. Like, do I still bring that mode and count on them not bringing it? That's why I think in the matchup, the Lycanrocs have this advantage.
Actually, do some cheeky stuff too.
Sorry?
You could do some cheeky adrenaline orb stuff potentially on the side of the Charlotte Beedrills. There's a couple Pokemon that could benefit from that, I think, like Toxtricity or Volcarona, like just being able to outspeed their mons with those two, potentially like super special offensive stuff.
I wouldn't run Volcarona for that because you can outspeed everything, but it's still going to take a lot of damage from a Lycanroc Dusk, Excel Rock.
I'm just spitballing here. I think that I just think that like there's some like Tailwind speed tier mods, right? That like
could really benefit from that speed boost. Yeah,
you could take advantage of that.
Agreed. Okay, I still think hands down I'm still back in the Charlotte Beedrills this week.
I'll second that.
As for trades that I suggest, I think the Charlotte Beedrills need to finish reshoring up their team. They made a few trades for like Volcarona, but now they're doubled up on Fire and Bug. And I think that now that they got Volcarona, they need to remove something like Entei for something else.
I would
That's
tend to,
my personal opinion.
and I'm also looking at potentially like alternatives to maybe the Toxtricity.
I was
Um,
just thinking that.
and obviously it looks like I think Alchemy Gmax is still open, which like seems like a pretty solid on here potentially. Like just I mean I guess they have a decent amount of support already. You could always go and try to offer a trade for something like Gengar seems okay.
I,
Um,
be- I believe there's still some decent tier 1 G Maxes, and I know like his initial plan was get a tier 3 G Max and get some more better mons down below. But I think he could trade away Entei for like a tier 3 and
mhm.
get Toxtricity to a tier 1 G Max that's still
Cinderace.
providing a lot of value. Well, maybe not. Cinderace. Cinderace isn't exactly a fire type, is it? It's whatever you want it to be. So yeah, it's not.
It's good. It's just good aggro, and I think this team does benefit from like what Toxtricity wants to do is be aggro, right? Um, but without like the speed control, you can't really get there. Cinderace has just insane speed, so you don't really need that. You just need redirection, which you now have. But like obviously another option would be like the Urshifu Rapid Strike. You have only Wartortle as your water type right now, which isn't really
Yeah,
covered too much. And Rapid Strike Urshifu is a solid, fast, um, you know, good damage, physical mon, decent.
I think Bryan used Urshifu last season and wasn't too happy with how that went. But
Fair enough.
another thing he could do is look at getting. Could he get Blastoise G Max? I don't
Nice.
know. Yeah,
I actually still think Alchemy Gmax.
Alchemy's good.
Um,
Alchemy is a
let's
great mon.
You get the like you can really support the Excadrill pretty well with it, I'd say.
Mhm.
Um, being able to aromatherapy away like burn, um, being able to buff it with your whatever it's called, decorate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get helping hand, you get all sorts of cool like support moves, I think. And just like if you wanted to max them, you can sustain through. Like you have a lot of really bulky mons that can do a lot of damage out of max. And I mentioned this like week one for our podcast, but like a support max is often sometimes pretty solid too on certain teams, right? Like the Aegislash is like I mentioned, like you don't want to max Aegislash, but if you max something behind it and kind of buff it as you go, that can still be your carry. You don't have to max your carry all the time.
Yeah.
That's an option.
And there's still some great tier 1s available if you wanted to stay in the tier 1 zone. Like there's
Yeah.
still like mons like Dragonite, Celesteela. And I know that's doubling up on Steel, but it's just an observation.
I'd like to see a steel or sorry, a dragon type on this team for sure.
Yeah, I think it's missing
A
like Dragon and Fairy.
Yeah. Um, I mean, Garchomp is available, but that might be a little redundant. Um,
But he can swap Toxtricity for Alchemy and get Entei swap for Dragonite.
Dracovish is open.
Yeah, that's true.
Dracovish.
That is true.
Dragon Water type covers those things, has sand synergy. Fucking easy, dude. Dracovish. There you go.
And then looking at the Lily Cove Lichen Rocks, I don't know if there's enough trades available. That's not to be
I
mean.
I think you can shore up his team with 5 trades. Yeah, right.
I just
I
don't know what he could lean into.
You know what I'm gonna do is I will, after this stream at some point, uh, list some trades that I think would be good for Lily Cove, Lichen Rocks, and I'll give it to them because I think that they could use some help. That's what I
So
think. I
initially,
like.
what I'm looking at here is that I think that they could remove one of the intimidators because they're basically the same thing.
Mhm.
And get a different, more valuable tier 1 pick. I think because he's got Tapu Bulu, he wants something with Unburden to be able to help support that. So he's got Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee's still available in tier 3. Now you can swap out one of the tier 3 mons that he's already got, such as maybe Espeon or Crawdont. I know Crawdont's good, but it's a bit edgy here. I wouldn't imagine he would swap out any of the Umbreon, Espeon, or Lycanroc anyway, because of they seem to be his mascots per se. Magnezone, I think, is a good mod, so I think that's fine. I just wish he would use it more.
I would try to find a Tailwind other than the Corviknight potentially.
Yeah.
If you wanna enable Magnezone and Flareon and stuff like that, you want a Tailwind. Crawdont as well. All of those are solid.
Is Crobat still available?
I think it is. Crobat's insanely good in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Is Aerodactyl still available?
It certainly is.
See, ones like this, I think, could really help. I think Crobat better than Aerodactyl in this case, though.
Yeah, I'm a little wary of Aerodactyl sometimes. I know it's like super strong, has a huge attack stat, but like personally, I always like the utility more than I like the raw power for my team, and Crobat fills that super well.
Yeah. I think Crobat would be good here, and either swap out Landorus or Salamence for a mon that's not weak to ice or rock.
Yeah, well, I mean, Crobat is weak to both of those, but yeah.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying, like, if you were to get Crobat on, swap one of them out.
Absolutely. And also Crobat gets inner focus too as well, so
that's why I like Crobat, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really good potential options here for our boy. The Lily Cove Lichen Rocks.
Okay, so we'll move on because of this is probably our longest one yet, but I'm pretty sure anyone who watches can just skip to the parts that they want to watch. So,
somebody picked up my girlfriend for me, so.
Oh, sweet. So we can finish. Nice. I was gonna say I was worried then because it's like 10 minutes from when you were saying.
Nah, we're good. We can keep going.
Cool. Okay, so we've got the Aegislash Blades versus the Merseyside Marowaks. Now, again, I'm yet to really see what the Aegislash Blades can do. And the Merseyside Marowaks, hopefully, not to be thinking, it gets a bit better at executing their games. I think their first game against Bioptic was a great game, and I think it was just knocked out of his control.
Yeah.
But in this instance, we've got Trick Room with Barraskewda, which does get Swift Swim, versus the Rain team. The only issue with Barraskewda here, though, is that Regieleki.
Regieleki exists, Electivire exists.
Electivire is Electivire. You could probably deal
really
with Electivire.
If you give it an assault vest, like it's pretty bulky, my dude.
Yeah, but like Barraskewda with a Moongus, say, like, Electivire, unless it's running safety goggles, ain't gonna be hitting the Barraskewda. So
that's true.
I don't know. I just have a bias against Electivire, but I have seen I have seen Assault Vest Electivire do work. I'm not saying it can't.
Yeah, I would agree.
I just dislike Electivire. I would imagine the Electivire comes Vital Spirit here, just to avoid the Spore from Amoongus.
Yeah, I could see that. That's what it did against me against Venusaur. So it does make sense, and he doesn't. Merseyside Marowak doesn't have any electric types. But I also doubt he brings Electivire in general.
Yeah, I'm looking at that going. I just don't see it coming.
It's a Marowak because of Claydol.
Of course, Marowak.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, and because like you have a pretty specially defensive team overall, that's just not, or sorry, physically defensive team overall, that's just not going to really like jive well with Electivire doing damage to anything, especially with a Mungus, like potentially Rage Powdering. You can't run like an offensive item if you want to hit is whatever's behind the Mungus, right? So, that being said, that makes, for me, it looks like Blastoise or Barraskewda both look pretty solid for the Merseyside Marowaks in this matchup.
Yeah, especially like, say, if you had an Assault Vest Blastoise.
Yeah.
Because of, Regieleki can hit Blastoise, but it can only hit Blastoise reliably.
Bryan just traded for the Dracovish.
Oh, wow. You can only trade. You can only hit Blastoise reliably with Regieleki if it's all Lurantis. Lurantis can also do some work against a Blastoise, but again, Assault Vest, like you'd have to be running physical Lurantis, and 9 times out of 10, special Lurantis is what you want because of Contrary. And Regieleki can only hit Blastoise reliably with Electro Web or Discharge because of the Marowak or the Amoonguss redirecting the attacks.
Right. And another thing you could do instead of like Assault Vest on Blastoise, you could just run Weakness Policy and bait it, right? Like,
you
just
got
run
decent
Weakness.
special defense.
Have Amoonguss next to you, maybe look to set up Trick Room the next turn with something, kind of position yourself, because like if you hit with Electro Lab, you get the speed drop. If you get Trick Room up, it doesn't matter, right?
And you can also feign a... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you can also feign, like, if you did an Amoonguss Blastoise lead, you could feign that it was going to be a Shell Smash.
Yeah.
So...
And you could also position Rabombi instead of setting up Trick Room. So even if you get that speed drop next turn, if Rabombi comes in somehow, you position it correctly, speed swap, and now that speed drop doesn't matter on the Blastoise.
It still gets reduction, but it's speed swap only swaps the stat, not these stat drops.
But even so, that's like still a super fast, outspeeding most team.
About 194 base speed dropped by 66%, about 33%. It's still outspeeding like a lot of like the slower mons like A/Slash and stuff like that.
Yeah, and especially setups, like you're pretty good here.
The more I look at this team, don't you change it. Don't you change it. Someone's on the slide. Oh, Tyler, stop. We'll just let it change. So the this is what happens when you do it live. So I still think that the A/Slash Blades aren't going to be able to match. Who was the other team?
You totally forgot.
I have.
Yeah, it's the who the hell is it? Merseyside Marowaks.
Merseyside.
Sorry.
Right. I think that the Merseyside Marowaks will be able to implement their game plan against the A/Slash Blades pretty well. Like Claydol, a lot of the time isn't the best mon, but like it could work as the Trick Room setter here just as well as like Porygon, and I think Porygon does really well here.
Yeah, I think both are really solid.
It's interesting
because I mean, how do they stop the Claydol? How do they Porygon?
Politoed Kingdra, but that kind of works to their Merseyside's advantage. Yeah, you don't really want to be setting Rain against Galastria.
Yeah,
means their Sensor Scorch ain't going to do as much.
Yeah, and you also put an Amoonguss in front of those. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Exactly.
I guess if you run if you run safety goggles on Kingdra, maybe you can calc that damage, but like just put a focus sash on the thing and you're fine for the most part, right?
It's why I still think Porygon's the better pick though, because of if you set Trick Room, it can at least Eerie Impulse.
Yeah, that's
and that's
true.
going to do pretty good against half of his team.
Well, I think Claydol gets
several
Eerie.
Raptors. Sorry?
Claydol also gets Eerie Impulse, I believe.
Does it?
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure. Let me check. Yep, gets Eerie Impulse.
Wow. Did not know that. And I played the Marowaks. Oops. But yeah, I think that the Marowaks have the tools necessary to just overpower the Aggie Slash Blades. If they can get in, I think it's going to be a case of the Aggie Slash Blades are having to play to the Marowaks game plan. I think they're going to have to play to outposition them.
I also notice a lot of sort of contradictory strategies that the Aegislash Blades has to struggle with, right?
Yeah.
You want to run a fire mode so you can deal with the Copper or the Glastrier and potentially the Amoonguss, or do you run the rain mode? Because you can't really do both, right?
Yeah.
And you don't really have an alternative to deal with the Copper Glastrier because your fighting type is Machoke. Your steel type for the Glastrier is Aegislash, who is not good in max and probably wouldn't be doing enough damage anyway.
Yeah, and you can run Copperage, G-Max, and Glastrier versus them, and I think Aegislash loses that matchup. I don't, even with the 150 attack stat, I don't think it does enough to Glastrier.
Yeah, and Copperage is insanely tanky as well when it comes to physical defense. So, Essential Scorch, I don't know, doesn't really do much. Aegislash don't really do much.
In terms of trades for these two teams, I think the Marowaks, I think this is a team that we've got to look at. I don't.
Like, for the most part.
I do like it. I know they've got one trade left, but I think my personal opinion is I don't like Barraskewda.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that Barraskewda has to go on this team for something more synergistic and efficient.
You can see it here. It's been brought 4 times, and it's on a KD of -4, which means it's been brought, killed, and never killed each time, and never got KO.
I think it's it just doesn't really fit in the team. Like, what is it bringing? You get
exactly.
I think you would benefit more from. Let me think. I was gonna say
any tier 2.
Yeah, and I also think you would benefit more from a special attacker as well. You have Noivern, who's pretty decent. You have Blastoise, who's pretty decent. But other than that,
I see that.
Mostly physical carries. You have Copperajah, Glastrier, Marowak, Pangoro. All of those are physical. So I think like
what he could do if he really wanted to lean into the Trick Room mode. Dragalge is still available.
Dragalge is pretty solid.
Just looking at the tier 2 list. You've
another.
got...
Let's see.
Nidoking still available.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad one, especially when you got Noivern with Tailwind. And it just provides that extra bit outside. There's... If you wanted an extra Trick Room setter, I don't think if he really needs it, but he could probably think to trade away Claydol at some point for something else in Tier 4. And I don't know if you really want something else from Tier 4. But he could get something like Coffin. That's a really good Tier 2.
Yeah. As if you wanted to keep the... Oh yeah, Reuniclus is open, and you don't have any.
That's a very good Trick Room set because it's also offensive special attacker.
Yeah, I like that too. Reuniclus. I don't know. There's a lot of good options here. And you don't even have to go for the Trick Room route, right? You can go for something completely different. Like
Thunderous T is available. You can go for Thunderous T. I know he had Thunderous Incarnate at one point, but Thunderous T is available. Tornadus T is available. They're pretty good.
if you're looking for, so what is this really missing, right? You have the Tailwind from Noivern. He's a super fast mon. You're really not worried about setting that up most of the time. Rabombi for speed swap. So you got like good speed control already options other than Trick Room, and your Trick Room is decent. I will say that like Porygon and Claydol aren't the most optimal Trick Room setters of all time, but like for what he's got going, I think it works. So what are we looking for? I really just think it's about shoring up your type advantages and weaknesses, and like finding a little bit more synergy, right? Because I think the Barraskewda doesn't synergize.
Yeah,
I think the
agree.
Barraskewda sticking out as a sore thumb, not really offering much in terms of damage compared to what other people are doing on your team. And not really being enabled by too many things, doesn't really benefit from the Tailwind, sucks in Trick Room. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just maybe you pick something a little bit more, and I can actually, you know what I can do is I can pop his team into my battle planner right now. And we can look at what type weaknesses exist on this team as it stands, and kind of think about potential Pokemon who could fill that um, properly.
He's weak to freeze dry. I know that much. So I exploited that weakness.
So like maybe an ice type could be good. And well, I guess Glastrier is there. So
yeah.
We've got Pangoro, we've got Rabombi, we've got Porygon. You've got Marowak.
He's got his type cores. It's weird. He's got all his type cores. He's got all these modes, but yet it does feel like he's just missing that one thing. And I get Barraskewda, it does provide that fast offensive mode for like when you've come out of Trick Room, but a lot of the time it's not getting it into the position it needs to be able to do stuff like that.
Okay, so the weakness, if I take out the Barraskewda, comes in the form of a little bit of fire weakness, a little bit of fighting, flying weakness is already on the team, even with the Barraskewda, and a little bit of rock weakness, which I don't even think that water types resist rock. So
no.
So yeah, so the fire, the rock, and flying.
Put in Nidoking.
All of which to me say rock type, right? Because does rock resist rock?
Yes.
And rock resists flying, I believe, as well. And rock resists fire.
Does he really want a Dreadnought?
Maybe not a Dreadnought. But are there other rock types in tier 2? Oh, isn't is Barraskewda tier 2? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no other rock types in tier 2 available. Aerodactyl. But then you don't want Aerodactyl because you got Noivern.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's Colossal.
Oh, Colossal. Actually, that's kind of interesting. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty interesting.
It's not terrible, but like you're getting a ground, water weaknesses, and I don't know. I don't know if that team really needs it.
Let's see. There's got to be another one, right? They just all get taken.
I don't know how many rock types there were in tier 2.
Yeah, it didn't look like there were many to begin with. I guess Gigalith is one.
I still like the idea of Nidoking.
Yeah, Nidoking sounds pretty solid. Let me pop in Nidoking and see how that affects things a little bit.
I think it's just come down to us two at the moment. I think the other two have left, haven't they?
Yeah, the only thing that would be there is a the weakness. Well, it still has the weaknesses to fire and flying at that point. It resists the
Yeah,
rock.
but Nidoking gets ground stab against the fire types, plus you got Blastoise, and which is nice. Plus Nidoking kind of covers majority of the mons that hit a Glastrier super effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm kind of married to the idea of Nidoking being a really good tier 2 mon.
Yeah.
Because he
I
doesn't want a mon that can max, because he's already got the max candidates. He kind of needs something that just provides that offensive pressure, which Barraskewda does. So if he doesn't want to lean into another Trick Room setter, I think he just needs something that also hits hard, but kind of synergizes a little bit better than what Barraskewda does. The issue is, obviously, is that Nidoking doesn't, or also isn't as bulky as what Barraskewda is, and still has that weakness to like freeze dry or ice types. However, it has a wide coverage of moves, can be run physical or special, benefits from Tailwind, and just has. I just like Nidoking. Yeah, the Nidoking pick, it's good, but I'm not convinced with it.
Yeah, we could go better than that, I think. But
yeah,
overall, I think that's just some ideas to think about, right? A strong special attacking replacement for Barraskewda, who can mitigate some of the weaknesses, maybe be a good partner to other Pokemon on the team, is really what you're looking for. I know that already a lot of good partners just on the team as well, looking at it, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah. And I know that if he had one more trade than what he's got remaining, I would suggest maybe swapping Barraskewda and Claydol for 2 tier 3s. Because there is some decent mons in tier 3, but obviously with just the one trade available to him, I think it depends on what he wants to do. I do agree what he needs is probably like a strong special attacking mon that covers some of the weaknesses he's got. But outside that, maybe he is looking to double down in his Trick Room setters, but I don't know if that's the best thing to do when he's only got one trade remaining. I do think his best option is to go for something that's a little bit more offensive, but also covering his team.
I also think there's the potential that a different team might like Barraskewda, potentially. Like
Yes.
Barraskewda is like a good Pokemon. I would argue like it's a very good Pokemon, very good water type. One of the few physical water types that you see. Um, so like pretty great Pokemon if you have the room for it, if you can enable it. So maybe you do some trades with another person, or
Hint,
a
hint.
trade.
Got two rain teams in the division. Maybe they would like a Swift Swimmer that
Yep.
could potentially avoid redirection with Repeller Tail.
I think this one right here could be a good one.
Yeah, probably.
Remove that Poliwrath, get a Barraskewda. But yeah, so who we have a look at the Eggy/Blades briefly. So now I know of a way of making this team really deadly.
Well,
But
go ahead and say it.
I'm not going to reveal it because I would not want to face it, and it's actually an idea given by Carmen.
I think it's more than fair that we say what it is personally, because we've already done the Darmanitan. I think right now we just did the Dracovish. Come on, let's all have the best teams we could possibly have. I think.
So I don't think this team it would make it super deadly in like traditional sense. However, if they removed a few mons, and I know they are really keen with them on like Eggy Slash and this and that, but if he doubled down into like Gothitelle with and Politoed with Perish Song and Shadow Tag Gothitelle, sent to Scorch G Max with its trapping move, like and go a little bit more down that route, it could. Yeah.
That actually seems pretty interesting. Yeah, I would explore that more if I were him for sure. That seems pretty cool. There are other Paris songs too besides that. The Polytone you might be able to pick up.
I think Marowak's still available, isn't it?
Marowak, I don't think is available. I think someone
Regular is, I'm pretty sure.
Is it? Let's check. No, someone has to.
No, I'm wrong.
But you can always get well, the ones that exist are Gengar, Lapras, Absol. I think someone has Altaria. Azumaril's taken. Cursola is kind of interesting with Perish Body as well. Jinx, I don't know what tier that is. That might be a tier 3. Probably don't want that Pokemon too much, but could be good.
This is a kind of team that would benefit from that Surfetched.
You think so?
Yeah. So I'm just having a look to see if I can see what Carmen said when he was telling me about this team. He was looking at like Aegislash for Gothitelle, Electivire for something else, and Mimikyu for something like Corviknight, really increasing the bulk of the team.
Yeah.
And having like that Perish Song as a viable strat.
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
Something like it turns like a mediocre rain team into a threat. Something that you can't out bulk, but also can't outspeed. So yeah.
To kill quickly if you want to avoid Paris songs shenanigans.
And that can be kind of difficult trying to match Kingdra's power, Regieleki's power, you know?
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to consider. Like I personally believe they should look to remove Electivire because they've got Regieleki.
Yeah.
I don't see what Electivire brings that he hasn't got already, other than being a physical mon. And I feel like there's better physical mons available. Machoke, it like you could get a better tier 3 from like even Machamp is better than Electivire in my opinion, and then you could just trade Machoke for something else.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there's a lot of good things. Obviously you don't want to like triple down too hard on like a Perish Song strategy.
No, obviously.
Good, but
there's definitely scope to work I'd say a better team.
Shed
or a
shell
scarier team.
That thing is that one item, the shed shell may switch out even when trapped. Like you might see people running against him. That's kind of fun.
That would be interesting. I think it would turn, as I say, I think something a little bit more out of the box like that would turn it like a mediocre-ish team, which I've been ranking it as, to a little bit more like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of threatening, like high levels.
You might also be able to another potential trapping option. Instead of Centiskorch, maybe you can make a trade for Gengar GMAX, which also has Perish Song built in as well.
Yeah. You'd have to remove the ghost types a little bit there, especially then.
Yeah. I just just thinking
generic.
Like, always worth looking at that kind of fun stuff.
So looking at the predictions again now, we'll move on to the next set, which is the Crumach Colossals versus the Southeast Luxrays. Where are they? Here we go. Now, I'm really interested to see how this one goes.
Yeah, this is definitely another really fun matchup, I think. I want to see so here's the narrative so far, right? I want to see Crumach Colossals do something with their team that I think is like interesting and skillful. Like so far I haven't really seen like they had the Frostlass Tauros game at one point, which I think was like fun but a little gimmicky. Like I think they have a really solid team overall, right? I just want to see them, just like hit the ground with like solid, good, powerful mons, kind of take the advice that Oddball gave me last week, which is just like you have these combos. So, and there's a reason they're strong. Like Frostlass Tauros is not a particularly strong combo. Like it's definitely strong if you can't stop it, but it's not like you know, it's not like a god tier combo at like Colossal plus
Yeah.
potential Vile is, or like Indeedee Porygon Z. Like those are so good. Like Indeedee Porygon Z is hard to deal with. Really hard
Yeah.
to deal with.
When I
So
look at this matchup, I'm thinking a real good mode for the Kremika Colossals to be running is probably going to be that Porygon Z. Like,
yeah.
that max normal move plus, say, I don't know, a dark coverage just for the Driftblim. Well, one, it's lowering the special defense of the opponent, so the next max strike is going to be even more powerful. And I don't know how the Southeast Luxrays really have a way of dealing with that Porygon Z.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely going to be difficult.
I would agree with that. I think it's a tough one, right? I think you need to be able to somehow have a really good assault vest user. I feel like I can't really see on your screen because it looks a little blurry to me, but that might
Oh,
just
sorry.
be my end. But let me go open the prep sheet from my computer. Could look to go with like a Driftblim. I know that good old uh, Porygon Z has like dark coverage, so that's but at least it is able to switch into the max strike potentially.
Yeah.
And I think that like you gain a little bit of speed control. Like you could even run Psychic Seed on it just to preempt like the um, that Indeedee might be coming. So maybe you run Psychic Seed on it, and like get that special defense boost. And maybe you bring what's the Pokemon Meowstic set up light screen. Like you have a super bulky Driftblim ready to go, who's denying that Porygon the ability to hit those max strikes super fast and threatens the Indeedee, right? With like dark coverage potentially. Um, can't hit it with the ghost obviously because it's a normal psychic type, but yeah, I don't know. Like there's some options here, and I think if I were in Bioptic's position here, and worried about like those really strong combos. Both of them are like um, specially relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So like trying to kind of shore that up seems like the way to go.
I do see, like, apart from, let's say, the Porygon Z mode that Kremika could run, there's the Colossal G-Max and Weavile, which is pretty good. I mean, Bioptic is weak to a lot of ice types. So Frostless is also a good mon. So Weavile could run offensive, but it could also run Surf for Colossal. And Colossal could be scared of the type of Finny, and the Chloritzer, but the Shellos is there for a reason. That's the reason why Kremika has drafted Shellos, is to protect that Colossal. And yeah, Rillaboom has to try and get a fine. We can one shot a Shellos, but if you sash the Shellos, if you put Protect on the Shellos, that's still like 2 turns. It's guaranteed to stay on the field.
Yeah, but I also think that maybe this week is a good week for like maybe Max Nidoqueen, for instance. Like Nidoqueen resists the Colossal in a lot of ways and threatens with the 4 times weakness to ground.
I suppose.
Um,
I personally never find a good reason to max a Nidoqueen, but hey ho.
I mean, yeah, like, well, you got that specially defensive, like Nidoqueen. Give it an assault vest, give it some like big moves, and it'll do some damage. I think. And put it behind a light. It's like I think, at least for me, like a lot of this matchup from Bioptic's perspective, kind of makes me think a little bit about how I sort of thought about our match from last week, where like I had this incredibly bulky Zapdos kind of just like tank stuff, right? When I went into that match, I was hesitant to bring Zapdos. You have like really good ice coverage. You have like an ice mode, right? But I thinking about it more, I was like, well, Zapdos is really good here into covering the other half of your team. And if I can find a way to sort of like work around that like weakness, I can really take advantage of the Zapdos. And you saw how bulky it was. It just tanked those things in max behind those light screens and like stalled out the game to a point where Venusaur could come from the back and sweep.
Yeah.
So
the only issue I have with that is that Nidoqueen doesn't have the same damage output as Zapdos does when it's maxed. So Zapdos is still a damaging threat, where for Nidoqueen here would be a little bit more passive. And yeah, it's good to an extent, but it basically gets destroyed by a Weavile. And that's not exactly what you want, especially when Bioptic's team is already pretty weak to the Weavile. I do see like Center Scorch could be a saving grace here for Bioptic again, because it resists the Weavile's the ice type weakness. That it provides coverage for the ice weakness he has. He's already got mons that threaten the Colossal, which already makes it a challenging bring. And Center Scorch max Flutterby into the Indeedee with next to Porygon Z, and you're lowering the special attack of a Porygon Z, as well as basically possibly one-shotting an Indeedee.
Yeah, potentially. I also kind of like Flawitzer here as well. Pretty good matchup into the Weavile, right? You get the Aura Sphere.
Yeah, that's true.
Basically, and it's a water type, so it resists that ice and the fire from the Colossal. And they don't really have they don't have a really strong grass type to take advantage of the Clawitzer. I mean, the Grookie can come and like be choice banded and kill them as is its destiny, but like in reality,
I agree.
what's Clawitzer?
And plus Chloritzer really threatens that Mudsdale.
Yeah, that too.
Like a terrain pulse of Chloritzer under grassy terrain. Oof. That Mudsdale is even assault vested Mudsdale is going to take a lot of damage from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think this could simulate a kind of terrain war as well, because obviously you've got Rillaboom, you've got Tapu Fini, you've got Indeedee, all of which are the exact same speed tier.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important as to how each side invests their speed. I think Bioptic has the advantage where he could literally run a minimum speed one and a normal speed one to always have a way of guaranteeing speed across against Indeedee.
Yeah.
A terrain against Indeedee, which really weakens it.
Indeedee is a little scary too. That's the thing, is if you can get the terrain control away from the Indeedee, you can then fake it out. And faking out the Indeedee is really good.
He could in theory, like, I don't want to get too much into the specifics, but I'm just saying, like, for example, you've got Rillaboom on the field. Indeedee's terrain sets up. Rillaboom wants to use fake out. Well, you just swap a mon in next to a Rillaboom that's using I just not exactly, it's not perfect, but there is, you could say indeed he's setting something up for another mon. You can fake out the mon that's going to be setting up the same turn that you switch in to overwrite the terrain, so it doesn't get that turn of setup.
Yeah.
And then you've got grassy, say you've wanted grassy terrain up, and it's just lots of different things that you can do, and who knows.
This is This is going to be a very matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm eyeing the Kremik Colossals here just because, like,
yeah, I was gonna say that.
if you're gonna win this matchup, you're gonna really have to prep hard for it because this matchup is very nuanced in a lot of really cool ways. But if you don't really think about how the nuance works and you just bring, whatever looks good on, at first glance, and you don't really have the time to prep, that Bioptic's going to prep the hell out of this match. And he's going to bring something interesting and flexible, and he's going to know what modes you have, and he's going to try to beat you that way. So, yeah. So I'm sort of like, once again, eyeing the consoles. Like, hey, you should probably, if you want to, if you wanted to, obviously real life gets in the way of things, but like this is definitely a week you want to 100% want to prep for if you're going to win.
And I feel like the extended week allows for that.
Yeah, that too.
So yeah, I agree. I think I would I expect that the result will end up being a colossal win.
Yeah, I think that God, it's a hard matchup for Bioptic. Like the modes that the Colossals can bring are very scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm gonna say that that Bioptic will win. I think that his team is flexible in a way that
The Colossals
we'll
aren't.
be able to get around. Yeah, that we'll be able to get around these specific modes that the Colossals bring. Especially when we look at something like Clawitz, or especially when we consider the flexibility of like Rillaboom and Tapu Fini and Meowstic and Drifblim and I guess Nidoqueen to some extent. Like all of those Pokemon are super duper flexible and have like many different ideas and like skill expressions that they could be brought with.
Mm-hmm. I agree. As for actual trades that these teams can make, I think the Luxrays are okay at the moment. I wouldn't say that they're in need of a trade.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Obviously, I'm always interested in thinking about good trades. Honestly, like as much as I've loved Scorch these last couple weeks, maybe there's a better fire type out there. Potentially, who knows? But yeah,
Tier
I don't know.
3, isn't it?
Is it? Nah, I'm not.
Yeah, it's possible better, but it's hard. He's got a lot of his tier 2s. He's got Haxorus, Meowstic, Drifblim, which
I
are
feel happy
two
risk getting
supports.
or something potentially.
Yeah, I think Haxorus is a little bit of a not dead weight, but like he's got so many other better options to be bringing most weeks than what Haxorus can bring.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean, I think there are definitely options here. If Bioptic was interested in making a trade, obviously, like reach out to us if you want suggestions. I can actually look into it more. But I think for now, like your team is solid, so
yeah, there's no glaring problems that I see.
yeah.
And as for the Colossals, again, it's so nuanced as to what his team composition is. I don't think there's anything better without changing what the team is. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. I think like personally, um I would find a more consistent pairing than the Frostless Tauros to run alongside your Colossal and Porygon Z strategies,
Hmm.
right? Um, like you don't always have to go Colossal or Porygon Z, but like at least have something there. Because like really they have a ton of anti-synergy, right? Like you don't really want to run Frostless Tauros and Colossal or Porygon Z, right?
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't seem to do anything for you, you know? Like it just feels like random Pokemon kind of bunched together without much synergy.
Yeah, I would say I would like to see some mons that complement his other modes a little bit more. Like I don't. He's already got two. Because he's got that colossal G-Max pick. It's already difficult. Like two of his tier ones are on Porygon Z in DDF, and then he's also got a tier one G-Max in Colossal. So he's already got like a lot of points used up just for those three mons.
Yeah.
Mudsdale and Frostless are good, but I do think that he could do with some more generic offensive support mons.
Yeah,
that
I do.
just carry themselves.
Yeah, and I think there's better options than Morlul. I think the Grookey and Shellos are good.
Yeah, I'm not a
for the
big fan of Morlul.
I think Morlul is kind of not really doing much. There's other high value tier 4s available still.
Agreed.
Always there's just plenty of decent tier 4s that you want out of it. You just need, I think Tauros right now is filling the role of a physical attacker.
Yeah.
But it's stepping on Porygon Z in terms of the fact that they're both normal type.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really wanted that like big damage out of a normal type Mon, Porygon Z is just better than Tauros, and you don't have that like good stab, right? Or like you don't have like good, because normal is never going to be super effective against anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want something that can actually hit something for super effective when you have an offensive Mon. That's why only reason Tauros works is because of the anger point. You get that +6 and then it does 1,000,000 damage, right? But if you can't get that, like Tauros isn't doing the damage he needs to. You want something better than that, I think.
Yeah.
And Frostlass is a decent support mon overall, but like I kind of think maybe you could do better, especially since you already have Weavile in the form of an ice support mon with offensive capabilities potentially.
Yeah.
I just think they're just kind of like you have 3 separate teams here that don't synergize with each other in one team,
So I know I've said it before, but I think this team could benefit from Sirfetch'd or Phalanx.
Yeah, potentially. I think
You got
any
that
good. Sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I said you've got that redirection from Indeedee for Phalanx to set up. You only got to worry about what expanding force users being used against you.
Yeah, and also maybe look into getting an Unburden style Pokemon to make use of all the terrain that you have. Let's check
Hitmonlee
out.
could be better. Be a better fighting type as well. Yeah.
I mean, like Slurpuff is available, which is kind of
is it?
It should be.
Yeah, it
sure
is. It is. I'm just looking at it now. Slurpuff could actually be really good, especially for someone like Indeedee, because Indeedee can be
How about
pretty
Feeble?
offensive if it wants to. Yeah,
Feeble.
Feeble doubles up on the dark type and the fighting weakness, I think.
Well, you can always get Halucha. I think that's still available potentially.
That's true.
Excelgor has Unburden, even though it's already 145 speed, so that I think it's a little
but
redundant.
more speed.
Yeah. So I mean, there's plenty of options there. Unburden is just such a cool ability. For
my favorite ability. I'm unfortunate that I've never been able to use it in draft yet.
Yeah, I had a complete. There was a different draft league that I was part of that I ended up dropping out of because I was so burnt out from Pokemon. Where I had like 3 Unburden Mons on my team
Yeah, no,
within.
you drafted every Unburden mon.
Yeah, and it was like pretty good. Honestly, like I think I had a really good team. I don't know. I was so burnt out, and I just wasn't really. I felt like shitty and really couldn't put in the effort that I wanted to in terms of like making the teams. So I don't know, but like on paper, that team looked hella scary in my opinion, at least.
Do you know where that team finished up in the end?
Where
16th.
16th. Yeah. Well, he traded all my Pokemon.
He traded away all the Mons and basically scrapped it, and then lost every matchup but one. He didn't come 16th. He came 15th.
Okay. Well, either way, that's not my drafting strategy. All right. Can't pin that one on me.
But no, I do agree with the sense that maybe the Frostless and Taurus. I know the Taurus has been good, but I want to see more diversity in the typings, the coverage. That's kind of when I look at this team, I go, 3 normal types? That's a bit
much.
It's a bit bland.
Yeah. And
but, 3 normal types, 2 ice types, 2 grass types, 2 fire types. It's a lot of repeating types.
And your cores aren't there, right? You don't have your fire, water, grass core because
I agree because of I agree.
Crappy, no offense to them, but they're tier 4s, and the reason you pick a solid core in that regard isn't just to have the coverage. It's because those typings are important for like your offensive and defensive strategy. And Grookey / Shellos, and I'm not even going to mention Morlul because I don't think that Pokemon ever comes to a game, period, over Grookey. They don't offer anything in terms of their type coverage. They offer some utility, which is completely different. It doesn't offer defensiveness. It doesn't offer offense. So there's that. Not to mention, like, you also don't have any other cores, right?
Does he even have? He doesn't even have a single one of the fantasy core if we exclude Morlul.
Yeah, I don't count Morlul as a Pokemon. I just don't think it's good. But
we
I
have
don't
no
know.
fairy, we have no steel, we have no dragon. So yeah, and we have no electric. We have I still consider an electric type to be vital if you're missing other cores, you know?
Yeah.
You have no electric. You've got no some of the elemental types is what I feel is missing. You don't have a bug type, and I know bug isn't always needed, but like it's just this missing of types.
Yeah, it feels a little like
flavorless.
Yeah. Well, and that's just because of all the normal types, I think. And like Porygon Z is obviously an incredibly good Pokemon. But I'll just reiterate that I think Tauros is sort of like Porygon Z light here in this team, and you don't need both in terms of what they're offering. A big Maxmon that can do a big Max Strike, like.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, well, given this matchup for this week anyway, I still back the Colossals. You say that Bioptic will win. It'll be interesting to see what the result will be. Okay, so now we get to talk about your match.
Ooh, yay! I haven't actually
spoken enough already.
Taking a nice break, so this will be the first time I really dive into it.
Okay, so do you want me to have a quick look at the matchup?
Yeah, I'll go for it. And Bryan, if you want, feel free.
So, I'm looking. First of all, I see rain versus sun. I think you've got the advantage when it comes to the weather wars here, because you've got Klefki, which really helps. Like a prankster weather setter when dealing with in a weather war is so useful to prevent if you lead it, they lead their weather setter, you can just prankster and reset the weather. If they switch them on in predicting your Ninetales or something, well then you just prankster switch the weather. So I feel like in this terms, you've got the control of what the weather's going to be, and that really puts him at a disadvantage because that means his Kartana isn't able to do as much as it would want it to do. Because if you've got this sun mode, Kartana does not want to be coming to a match where there's a sun mode.
Yeah, especially like you were mentioning, you can get one shot by a Litten right, or whatever.
Yeah, you got Ninetales.
Yeah, and I don't really even need to invest much if I just have Sun Up, right? It just gives me the boost. Doesn't really
I'm
matter if
pretty sure a Zapdos Heatwave can kill a Kartana.
yeah, exactly.
So even a Flygon. So
Yeah,
I think you've got a massive advantage there on the that side of things. Although you've got Venusaur, you don't even need the Venusaur to be there to be dominating the weather wars. Like Venusaur's good for his rain mons. He does have Blacephalon, which, let's be honest, Venusaur usually doesn't worry about special fire types, but a Blacephalon is a nuke.
yeah. Blacephalon does pressure my mode a little bit, especially
It
like in
does.
terms of key. So I'll want to figure out a way to deal with that. But I have Kangaskhan who has Scrappy Fake Out potentially. I might want to run Inner Focus just because they got 2 other Fake Outs. But that's still an option for me. And if I Fake Out the Blacephalon, who is an insanely flimsy mon, just gives me a free turn to kill it with whatever I'm following it up with.
And that's the thing. Kangaskhan actually matches up well against Blacephalon because of against Sucker Punch. It does a lot. I don't want to go too much and ruin your. Sorry.
Is Mind Blown that moves that fire type or ghost type?
Mind Blown's the fire type.
Okay.
Which takes like half your health off to use it.
Right.
It hits his own guys as well.
Yeah, it's like an explosion. I do think that there is one mon on your side that I can speak to you about afterwards that I think could match up really well against his team. That I really like the look of. Because of what else you've got to pressure. But he's got to decide, basically, does he run Rain or does he run his Fire mons? You know, he can't bring conflicting modes to this.
Yeah.
I do think a way for him to win the speed wars could be that Orbeetle. Can really help. Yeah. I didn't realize Orbeetle's speed was 90. Jesus, that's quite fast.
That's very fast.
Yeah, Orbeetle's has a decent speed tier.
Yeah, that's surprising. That's really fast, actually. Because at 90, yeah, okay.
And it gets imprisoned Trick Room. But wait, you're not running Trick Room, so never mind.
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. Exactly. So I don't know. I think the matchups is in your favor, and I think player experience is in your favor. So I do think that you will win this. And I don't want to go too much in depth with what I think each can do.
Got it. Cool.
And it'll be something we'll talk about later.
Super cool. Yeah, we'll and hopefully I can after this game I can go on to the podcast that the Dark Lord and Ancient Jedi do. Have a talk with him about the matchup and everything. I think that'd be super fun. So
I should be going on their podcast week 5 because I play them after this week.
Yeah, I just got your message, and yeah, I agree on this one.
yeah. I just messaged you which mon I think would be good. But yeah, so that's my initial thoughts. I think the Dracozolt will end up winning this one. I think you've taken your win against me. I think you're now on a nice path to victory. So, talking about trades, I know you've got one trade left. I don't know. You were thinking of I don't know if you want to share what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too out there. I'm considering trading one of my tier 4s for my last trade. I think a couple things, right? First and foremost, I have Klefki with Prankster, which is a little bit redundant with the Impidimp. A lot of times, the Klefki will just be better at that, whatever I'm trying to do there. However,
Agreed.
Impidimp does have more disruptive type of moves, like fake out and whatnot. So there is value to having both of them, I think. Whereas with Fletchling, who I'm really leaning on getting rid of more than the Impidimp, I think. Fletchling is basically like from all the prep that I've done so far from the last 3 games. I didn't have Fletchling week 1, did I? I think I actually did. Either way, the Fletchling just feels like it doesn't do anything except set up Tailwind. And because of that, if I'm bringing it, it's either like super obvious that that's exactly what I'm doing, and it's super easy to disrupt if I'm showing that, right? And once it's disrupted, like, and Gale Wings is no longer active, Fletchling just kind of sucks and doesn't really do anything, right?
You could do a Gale Wings pack into a weakness policy Machamp or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I tried to do that with my Urshifu a couple times.
Yeah, that's a potential, like, but once again, like, if they're prepping to block my Tailwind, they can just as easily prep to block a priority anything, right, that the Fletchling does. They see Machamp Fletchling, it doesn't matter whether it's pecking into Machamp or it's setting Tailwind. They're just going to try to fake it out or whatever anyway.
It
right?
has quick guard. It has quick guard.
But slower than most fake out users.
Yeah.
Sure.
Either way, your suggestion is well noted. I still think that those little tiny things I could do can be made up for, especially since I have
25 points.
I have a 25 point like, what is it called?
Reserve. We'll call it reserve. You've got 25 points in hand.
Yeah, and so I can upgrade that Fletchling to a tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I want to keep Tailwind on my team, there's like a couple options there that I kind of like. But after talking a little bit before this, I think there's a couple other mons on there who look pretty convincing as well. That maybe don't have Tailwind, and I could just make use of my already pretty fast team. The only thing is Machamp kind of suffers from not having Tailwind on my team. But otherwise, my team is pretty solid in general when it comes to speed tiers.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose Machamp is possibly the only mon that would benefit from a Tailwind, but I mean, you've got that much speed elsewhere.
Plus, Machamp is a pretty good support mon that gains priority with his support moves. So he's got like Wide Guard, he's got Bullet Punch, he's got Helping Hand, stuff like that. So overall, it's like solid. Anyway, so.
And then, so that's your team. Then there's the Dark Lord Greninjas. Now, the team's not awful. I hate Katana, but I don't. I like Katana. Katana's a great mon in actual meta competition, but I don't like it as a draft mon. I know it was his first pick, but I've said it time and time again how weak it is to just fire moves, special fire moves.
Yeah.
So, do I think you could get a better tier 1 grass type? I don't know what's available.
It's a good question.
But
I think Kartana is like a very strong Pokemon in general, so I would be I'd be careful to just like trade it away out of,
oh yeah, for sure.
Especially if there aren't many good like grass types in tier 1 still available. The only one I see right now is like the same typing of Ferrothorn.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. There might be another one that I just
Ferrothorn has worked on rain teams though.
Rillaboom's already still available, so that's actually pretty solid too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, just regular Rillaboom, not Gmax.
It's not terrible. I do dislike though the rain mode, and I think this is because I think Poliwrath is it Poliwrath a tier 3? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, Poliwrath is tier 3 this season.
Okay.
So I'm not a big fan of having Suicune, Pelipper, and Poliwrath on the same team.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Suicune and Pelipper, like we said, I think probably the first time we looked at this, are a little bit redundant since both get Tailwind and both are water types. So you probably want one or the other. If you really want to keep your rain mode, which does synergize with Kartana, admittedly, Suicune is probably the better trade to throw away. And you maybe want to pick up something better than Poliwrath for like a synergy there.
Yeah.
But the other way around works too. Like you could just totally ditch the rain mode, like trade away Pelipper and Poliwrath for something that synergizes more, maybe under Trick Room, because you have that Orbeetle to potentially set it up. But I guess you don't really have that many super slow mons, so maybe not that. Yeah, I don't know.
I do think his rain mode's been okay. Like he's been using the Pelipper, he likes using the Pelipper, he likes using the Suicune. That's fine. But then I don't think you need the Poliwrath as well. The other issue is that I don't like there being Incineroar and Blacephalon. I don't know. I just something about it just is a bit like I know the two different fire types. I get that. But there's still two fire types on a team that has a rain mode.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think
Golbat.
Golbat's a little out of place here.
Get rid of Golbat, get something better.
When it comes to rain mode, I do think maybe you add something like a Seismitoad or a what's the Swampert, right?
Ooh, I do like a Swampert from tier 2.
Because if you pair that with Pelipper, right, the grass type is being covered by the flying type, and the ground type is covering for like rock type and electric, right?
Yeah, and you've even got like Kartana, which is a good safe switch for grass type moves, Incineroar and Blacephalon. That's not a bad shout, and that could actually be a good replacement for Suicune, to be honest.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. Does Swampert get okay? Yeah, it doesn't get any like rain synergy. I know that Seismitoad does, and Seismitoad's actually a really strong Pokemon. It gets Swift Swim, and it's at 74 base speed, so you get a really fast Mon in rain with a 95 attack, pretty solid HP and good coverage in a lot of ways. It gets grass coverage, it gets Power Whip, which is pretty great. So you got to really make use of either of those, I think.
It can also be ran specially or physically.
Yeah.
Which is pretty decent.
You have Damp on Swampert to block your own Mind Blown. So there's that.
I think Damp negates Mind Blown though.
I'm just kidding.
All right, I wasn't sure if you were thinking that. Another thing, where's Ludicolo?
Ludicolo is tier 2, I believe.
Has it been drafted?
I don't think so.
Now, hear me out. Ludicolo is good for this team if you wanted to get rid of Kartana for something else. And the reason being is because of it can make use of both of its abilities. Swift Swim with Pelipper, it gets Fake Out. It gets grass coverage, it gets ice coverage, it gets water coverage. It's great. But also, Grimmsnarl, Prankster, Swagger into own tempo Ludicolo.
Yeah, definitely. Super good.
And I think that's good.
I can get behind that. Yeah, I think in general, when you have a rain mode, and I think this is just sort of like something that you will kind of see if you get into the weeds of it, is you're gonna have redundancy on your team. Like this goes for pretty much any mode, right? If you have a sun mode, you're generally gonna have grass and fire types. If you have a rain mode, you're gonna have generally water types, maybe some electric types to like make use of thunder. If you have a sand mode, you're gonna have a lot of ground, rock, steel type type Pokemon, right? And so a lot of those are going to share weaknesses, right? And the trick is to finding those key Pokemon who cover for the weakness while still being the same type and making use of the rain. Ludicolo is one of those. Seismitoad is one of those, right? Because Seismitoad negates electric. Ludicolo is neutral to electric. Like so good, and like super good, super good. Just being able to resist things that you would otherwise, like for instance, Poliwrath, the water and the fighting. I don't think they actually cover anything for each other, right?
Yeah, it's just it adds weaknesses.
It just adds weaknesses. And
Flying, psychic, fairy, electric, grass.
Yeah. And Ludicolo is just such a good Pokemon. Definitely
really is.
To it. I
prefer Ludicolo to Seismitoad. Maybe I just don't like Seismitoad because I tried to use it last season. I didn't use it very well. Maybe that's because I'm a bad player. But
I do think though that the draft that the Dark Lords have got a draft that would allow for Seismitoad a little bit more than what yours was.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's where the difference is. But
and if you drop the Kartana, you can just have Pelipper, Seismitoad, and Ludicolo. Like all three of those are just good to have on the team together. And
then is there another tier 1 he could pick up?
Well, is Ludicolo's tier 2, so is Seismitoad. So maybe you have the extra points with the Kartana, but or I don't know.
Get rid of Palswine.
Yeah, there's some stuff you could do with that. I think.
Rid of Golbat even. No, I agree. I think there's some potential for improving this team's rain mode. I'm not saying get rid of Kartana because the Kartana is still pretty good. But like I do think like Suicune or Poliwrath could be removed for some better mons, maybe, especially Suicune. I like Suicune, but I do like the idea of having a better Swift Swim user and then having a better tier 3 in place of Poliwrath.
Yeah.
So, that's that. I still think that you're gonna pick up the win.
Well, I sure hope so.
We'll see. We'll move on to my match. I'm not going to talk too much about it. To the dismay of Dragon and the Amateur Alchemies. Now, I know the Alchemies have already prepped for me, and they've been prepped for like the last week. But I am not anywhere near ready yet. So, in fact, I barely looked at the matchup.
I'll help you out, probably.
Yeah.
I know I helped Dragon, and I'll be helping you. So maybe like Oddball mentioned, maybe it's gonna be he's gonna be your bane in terms of prep. But
right.
Something tells me that I think you're gonna be just fine in this matchup, personally.
I've got some ideas for what I need against the Alchemies this week. There are some key threats that they've got. I really don't want to say too much though, because I don't want to give the Alchemies any ideas, because then they'll know what I'm thinking.
Well, I'll tell them what I'm thinking a little bit, and just like for the audience to kind of see some of the more basic things. Lapras versus Metagross is a bad matchup for the Alchemies. Right? The steel is super effective. I think. No, is it?
No, it's neutral.
No, it's neutral.
Okay. Well, maybe it's neutral. In that case, yeah. I still think it's an okay matchup for the Metagross, though.
Thunder Punch is a thing.
Well, Raichu's also a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that! It's the matchup between Raichu and Pikachu. Let's go.
But I do think I think so. Here's the thing: when you're prepping against the Alchemies, you're gonna have to ask yourself one question, and that question is, how do I deal with Lapras? How do I deal with Lapras, and how do I deal with all the sort of like weird support stuff that kind of surrounds the Lapras, and like just having the Aurora Veil enables, having Aurora Veil up. In my opinion, even though Lapras does do big damage, that Pokemon is the epitome of like a support max. Just being able to set up Aurora Veil with its max move, and then setting up something like a Caparaja, like they've been doing, or the Moltres is like OP. It's good. And the fact that it doesn't set Hail when it uses an Ice mode actually tends to benefit your own team a lot more sometimes, especially against you, who would make use of that Hail, right? Pretty effectively with that Arctivish. So how do you beat Lapras? And I think there are two ways. You either break its screens with, Psychic Fangs, Brick Break, whatever. If you have like Gmax Corviknight, you can use its Gmax move to clear screens, I believe. If you have like the screen cleaner from like Mr. Rhyme or whatever, that could work. So there's a lot of options to break the screen, or you just outlast the screens and try to just like basically be bulky yourself and just like just sit there and take the Lapras's hits. Because one of the things that I think is really worth mentioning here is, other than the Alchemy, who's able to buff buff up the Mons around it with its Decorate, like, and kind of other than the Moltres and a little bit the Chandelure, like there's not a whole ton of damage output here, and a lot of it is special, which is particularly relevant because Assault Vest exists. There's no real Assault Vest equivalent for physical Mons, but like for Assault Vest, you can like resist a lot of these Mons that he's potentially bringing. Not to mention, Alchemy has ways of being negated as well. You can just like bring Haze or something, and you just like completely remove the buffs that it gives, and they just wasted their turn with the Alchemy.
Yeah, we saw that by Optic in his week against them.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that's just kind of a general understanding of how to deal with Lapras. Not that I'm saying that, particularly you should go for one way or the other. But I guess viewers interested in my take on how to deal with Lapras, that's one way. On the other hand,
we don't need to tell you about how we deal with my team.
I think it's important to at least point out a couple things, right? So people can have an understanding about that too.
Yeah. You can do that. I'll cut it, but you can do that. I'm joking. I kid.
Yeah, I think like you got a lot of really good synergistic modes. I think denying Trick Room here would be pretty beneficial for them, even though they have the Caparaja and the Appleton. Like, I think Drampa matches up against those pretty nicely overall, and the Aromatisse, right? Even though Aromatisse kind of dies to Caparaja, you still get like Fungus potentially to like spore things, be annoying. I don't know. I still think your Trick Room mode is probably better. So denying Trick Room with like Chandelure might be something they're looking into, or maybe they're leaning into Trick Room and like give Iron Ball or Room Service to one of their slower Mons to try to abuse that. They also have to be scared of like, you just have such good solid Mons across the board, like Primarina, like Metagross, like Moltres potentially. I don't know. I don't really like the Moltres personally. I think that's probably going to be a recommended trade for you potentially, but like Spectrier is really scary because you don't know if it's going like a more support build, or you're going to just like max it and just start snowballing with its special attack increases. It's all very important to like understand how your team works when going into it, just because I think it's so versatile and you don't really know what to bring against it per se.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to say that I'm backing myself this week. I need this extra win.
I'm gonna help you prep this week, so I guess I'll also back you just because I want to think that my prep
is the correct answer.
is.
Sorry, Alchemies, you're not being supported.
I think it's worth mentioning that Dragon's team, I do think, has a bit of a advantage just on paper in this matchup. I think that like it's sort of in their favor when it comes to the matchup, but I do think that there are 100% ways to bring some tech in with the alchemy.
So just to briefly gloss over things, the Trick Room is probably the most complex as to who's better and which one matches up better, because obviously Copperage is good against Aromatisse, but Drampa can be good against a non-AV Copperager. So I expect the Copperager could be Assault Vest. Moltres matches up okay. I wouldn't but it's countered by the Lycanroc midday. You've got Pikachu for Lapras, but then Raichu exists. Metagross matches up pretty okay against most of the team, but then obviously Moltres, Galar, Chandelure does damage to Moltres and Spectria. The Hail mode exists, but the Hail mode can be countered by Cloud9 Altaria, but then again, Altaria is a Dragon Flying and probably not the best matchup for Cloud9. So that's just a few like little instances of what's there and thingy, so it's definitely going to be an interesting result.
Looks like Oddball made his too now.
I don't know what. Yeah, okay, you can talk about mine. I'm not looking to trade anything just yet, but I can understand, like you saying, that Moltres could be a potential trade. I want to be able to utilize it a little bit more than what I have done so far. I brought it once. The only reason why I didn't bring it against you is because, one, it was so soon after using it against another Venusaur team, and I kind of expected you to have a counter for it because of it countered the last Venusaur I went against. So that's number one. Otherwise, I probably would have used it against you. And
yeah,
I like it, but it does have a glaring rock weakness that's really annoying. I just don't know if there's anything else in tier 2 that's a fire type that I'm really looking at, and I'd be happy with putting on the team.
Salazzle, I think Salazzle would really benefit your team.
Fire poison, yeah, I can see it. Double the poison Fungus, but
Fungus doesn't. Like, here's the thing: is Fungus, like when it comes to those like
Pokemon, I know Fungus doesn't count, but as a resisted type, I'm just looking at what it resists.
I mean, maybe it doesn't fit well into your team because of maybe the ground weakness or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
But I still think I think that just having a very fast fake out user,
Mienshao,
other than Mienshao, who can provide. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the Salazzle. Maybe I'm biased because Salazzle was my kind of star player during the last season. I just think that it's so good.
No, I agree. Salazzle is a good mod. I don't know. Well, I'll look at it going into like week 5 and week 6 and see if I'm still happy or not. I do think if I make any trades, it's going to be like just past mid-season.
Yeah, and I think even if it kind of disrupts a little bit of your team, I think it might be worth it to kind of trade around to get a better like Firemon, like if you could cover up some of that ground weakness, because I do think that I think that for me, just Moltres doesn't seem to really. I don't know. Like you say, you think you have some good stuff for it. I just think maybe, and you felt this. You tell me, but I just feel like Moltres is always really hard to prep to succeed in a team like this, especially because one rock move is all it takes to really deal with that, and you have to really over prep for that one rock move in order to really like mitigate you just getting one shot with Moltres. Like yeah, you can set up, you can set up screens, you can give it a rock berry or whatever, anything that's needed, but then you're missing out on some other things.
Oh, it looks like Tyler's back on again.
Ooh.
No, I see what you mean. I see what you're saying.
If you can find something.
I'll have a look at it later on and see what I'm feeling like.
Yeah.
Who's my team? The Alchemies, though. What are we thinking here? Are we thinking? What traits do you think?
For the alchemies, I just think they need more front-loaded damage that can reliably exist outside of Trick Room.
Mm-hmm.
I think like when it comes to the stuff that they have now, the ones I'm looking at in terms of front-loaded damage are Moltres, Chandelure, and like kind of Lycanroc. And all of those, except for Lycanroc, the Moltres, and the Chandelure, are just kind of like below average speed tier for like fast mons, right? Like if you want it to be offensive with a mon, you want to be able to hit first with it, and it's kind of tough for those guys to hit first a lot of the times, just because they 90 and 80 speed, right? Lycanroc is a decent pickup. I just think that like stats wise, it's a little frail, and even though it gets that priority rock move, which is super good, I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't like. It doesn't allow that. Let me check something real quick for you. No, it doesn't.
Shame. Yeah,
But
no,
yeah.
I agree with what you're saying.
So I would find one that has good, fast, front-loaded damage, just to give just to have that one more aggro threat on the team, right?
Yeah.
Something you have to respect that doesn't require much setup. You have to respect the lab already. You have to respect the Trick Room already. So the one thing you're missing is like, I mean, obviously this is kind of a more analogous example, but like something like a Cinderace like could be on this team and make it very scary. Like I don't, not specifically Cinderace per se, but like a mon that can um, exist in that sort of like role that Cinderace plays for a team.
Yeah, and I think it would be the mon that would need trading away could be like the Appleton, to be honest. Because you've already got the Caparaja for the Trick Room and the BHM for the Trick Room, and Chandelure even could be used in Trick Room. Like, I know he's tried to use Room Service Chandelure before. So, I just feel like Appleton doesn't really provide anything that the rest of the team already doesn't.
That dragon with
yeah, exactly. So I feel like if there's going to be any money trades away, it should be Appleton for something that does do that damage. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I can kind of look up some potential options. I think it's always good to take a look. I'm just gonna search grass, sort by speed. You know, do they have beat up on the team at all? Does any other Pokemon have a beat up? Does Lopunny get it? I don't know.
No, none of the mons that they have got beat up.
Yeah, I guess not. Well, I was thinking maybe you could look at something like a Virizion as like a good solid offensive grass type, but let's go back to that and see. Like I don't know. Rillaboom is still open, obviously we mentioned before.
Yeah, but he's got Lapras, Gmax, and Moltres.
Yeah.
He'd have to really shift around in order to get the points for something like that.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know, is Leafeon picked up probably already?
No.
Yeah, Leafeon's pretty fast and has high attack.
That's not bad actually, especially with the fact. Yeah, it's not bad. Like when he faces like sunny day teams, he can run Chlorophyll Rain Dance for his Lapras.
Yeah.
It's not bad actually. I like that.
Decidueye maybe potentially. I know that
double up on the ghost weakness.
Yeah, it's a little much.
But no, Leafeon could be a good one. I mean, it gets fast charm as well, so if in sun.
Delmise maybe? I don't know. That's not fast though. So yeah, Roserade maybe. I don't know. There's some options there. I think like just like having like something that could sit there and like when I'm prepping against the alchemies, let's just say I'm, just for example, I'm prepping against the alchemies. Like I would be I'd be interested in like if there was something like a Cinderace there that like just threatened aggression against me, like I would be much less inclined to bring some sort of setup to like deny the Aurora Veil or something like that. I want to just be able to match that in some way. It just like disrupts the prep a little bit and like threatens a sweep against you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the final team matchup, and this is the South Croydon Saws versus the Cardiff Kamalas. Now, honestly, so far there's been no reason not to support the South Croydon Saws. The Cardiff Kamalas have another fast team with the Sunny Day Venusaur G-Max and Clefairy Dragapult and Rain Dance Kabutops. So it is another decently fast team. Sigilyph, fast Tailwind setter if it needs to be. But I don't think it's going to be able to match the South Korean Saws. Like, we've seen how fast that team can be, how offensive off the back that team can be.
The main issue here is always going to be Sceptile, right? If Sceptile didn't exist, I would say Kabutops kind of owns this team. Just being able to threaten the Tornadus, being able to, if you can set Rain with Liepard, Darmanitan doesn't really do much against it. It resists the Sneasels shenanigans with ice moves. Even though it's weak to Terrakion, you could still be super effective against the Terrakion right back with your water type moves. Yeah, I think like that's solid. But then Sceptile exists, right? And now it's unburdened. Now it's faster than your Kabutops, and it just kills it in one hit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And even with like Rain Dance, Swift Swim, or Weak Armor, it can't get to that speed it needs to be.
Yeah.
And aside from that, we've even seen a supportive Sceptile where it's under Sun. It's had its unburdened ability broken, and then it just uses Worry Seed to control the speed of the mons with the abilities to up their speed.
Yeah. And the way that I dealt with this team, even though I lost to it, I still had a really solid game 2 before the freeze happened, was relying on my Inteleon to do the big damage, right? And that's just because Inteleon gets solid coverage in terms of ice, water, and dark, which covers a lot of this team. But like, there's not really an equivalent here on the Cardiff Kamalas teams. And also, Inteleon has 120 speed, which outspeeds everything except the Sceptile. So I was able to make use of that, and they just don't have that on this team as well. So even though my pathetic attempt to beat them like was semi-successful to some degree, like in game 2, I thought I matched up pretty well. I just don't think like I had Venusaur as well. It just doesn't do what it needs to do,
Do you know what I think could be really interesting here? Rain Dance Liepard Venusaur. And the reason being, Venusaur matches up well against Sceptile. We know this. It gets acrobatics against Venusaur, and that's an issue. Tornadus, Hurricane against Venusaur, but it's still not going to be doing anywhere near enough damage against this Venusaur, especially if it's maxed. Then the only other issue is Darmanitan, right? So Darmanitan comes along, Flare Blitz into Venusaur, Max Flares into Venusaur. Well, if you rain dance Lipard, you're doing way less damage. Venusaur can take that. And what's cool? Weather Ball Venusaur.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Weather Ball is good, but it's super unreliable, especially since I know Tornadus can set weather too, right?
Only rain.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure
Only
it
gets rain dance, doesn't get sunny day. Because it's a cloud.
You are correct.
It's just rain dance. I ran Tornadus Eye in my multi-league, and I didn't learn Sunny Day.
Of course I'm correct. I know these things.
Right,
Now, but yeah, that's why I think it could be pretty. I don't know, pretty good. It also hits. I mean, I know it doesn't hit a load of his mons that he doesn't already hit with the grass typing, but as a last-ditch surprise factor, it's not terrible.
And I guess we're kind of overlooking the Trick Room mode potentially from the card of Kamala's.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. Glaceon Marowak isn't bad.
No, definitely not. Like Glaceon does some pretty good damage to this team, and Marowak does as well. So that's pretty good. The issue is the Sigilith is the only one who can set up the Trick Room.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have Clefairy. So
yeah,
maybe. Gengar G-Max comes out, tries to imprison, but you're Sigilith and you could just Psychic it, kill.
You could run this is wild, but you could run Eject Button Clefairy, follow me, Sash Sigilith.
Yeah, maybe.
Get your Trick Room Mon in for free after the Clefairy. Sigilith takes some damage, but it's going to get Trick Room up. So I don't know.
Priority taunt Lipard outside of Psychic Terrain potentially. That's another thing though. It's like Psychic Terrain is kind of an annoying part of this as well.
Yeah, I do think that the South Carolina Saws are going to win.
Yeah, I think this is this team is so hard to prep for.
Yeah, I want the Kamalas to take a win, but as I say, I don't think this South Carolina Saws have really showed a reason why not to bet on them so far. They've got better and better each week, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I understand that this last week they were a little bit lucky against Oddball, but I don't think they really deviated too much from their way they played against you either. So
yeah.
Okay, so trades. I'm not sure. Let's go with the card of Kamala's.
We're already responsible for that Darmanitan trades. That's pretty nice that they listen to us, and it seems to be working out for them really well so far.
They've also just traded Mudbray away, haven't they?
Yeah, as well as or was it just Mudbray? No, I think they traded two things, right? They traded Mudbray and what did they trade? Wailord, yeah.
Oh yeah, they got rid of my Wailord.
Yeah, they just traded away for some solid mons, I think, that are just as good but different in their utility. So let's see. Yeah, Sandslash and Octillery.
Which honestly I think is decent. Artillery is a good Trick Room Watermon. I know it's going to be one of his slower mons on his team, but like Wailord was already slow anyway. He already had some decent mons that did better than Wailord. Artillery can be quite good. And then Sandslash.
It's better coverage than the Wailord as well.
I can see a pseudo Sandslash, coming in behind a Max Terrakin that has set Rockfall.
Yeah, I can see that too. I'm looking at what it does. I'm seeing, I mean, it gets Steel Roller, which synergizes with his AD, I guess. I guess it's kind of its speed. I don't know. Better. It's like Mudbray with better stats, kind of. Maybe that's just why.
Maybe.
It's harder.
I know that that's getting into the trades he's made for next week, but I don't really see something I would like to change about his team just yet.
Yeah, I think it's in a good place.
And I kind of say the same about the Cardiff Kamalas. Like, maybe, like, they've got good diversity across the team, and yeah, it's very top heavy with it, the Dragapult, Clefairy, Lipard, Venusaur. But is that a bad thing?
Not really. I think it's got
Exactly.
I think all of the picks they have are pretty good value for what their tiers are, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that the Glaceon Graplock is like super good for tier 4s. I think Marowak, Magneton is also a tier 4 that's really good. But yeah, like Marowak, I think Sigilif maybe you could find a better Trick Room setter
Yeah.
potential. But like if
I'm
it's also a weather setter too. You can set the sun with Venusaur. You can set Tailwind as well. So I mean, it's not terrible, obviously. Maybe Silvally can be.
that's literally what I was thinking. I think Silvally is the only thing that maybe could be swapped out for something else in tier 2. I right now I'm not 100% sure what. It all depends really on what he feels like he's missing.
Like we can take a look, but at some point, let's see. What are we looking for really is the question. Are all the cores there? I know they have fake out, they got redirection.
They don't have fire. Like,
Yeah, they don't have fire.
Are they missing Charizard? Could they do with Charizard?
Yeah, Charizard could work here.
Like,
Charizard could definitely work here.
They could lean fully into like a Sun mode with Charizard. I know they need a Prankster setup, but like
they have Lipard.
Yes, and I know I said I know they're relying on the Prankster setup, but like, is it that bad?
Yeah,
I mean,
let's keep looking though. I think Charizard's pretty solid. But what else is there? Let's see. There's like as a fire type, maybe Blaziken seems okay. Dragapult, so Colossal, also works.
That's true. Like
Mm,
Colossal's not actually a bad pick, but the only different problem is that Kabutops is also a rock type.
Yeah. Maybe you switch it out. Maybe you also trade the Kabutops for a better water user, especially if you're gonna like, I don't know, who knows. Obviously, these are all just suggestions to think about. What other fire types are there here? I don't see any other ones in particular. Salazzle, I guess. Salazzle is always really cool. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of other fire types.
Fire types became high demand. Do you know what would be good though? Is if that Blacephalon came back on the market.
Yeah, that'd be solid.
And I think Blacephalon could be alright. The only issue then is that Dragapult is doubling up on the Ghost type. So
I honestly think Charizard or Colossal are the way to go here, based on what I'm looking.
Same. And I actually have an inkling that you could get a better Trick Room user than Sigilyph, but do you need it? I think Trick Room or Imprison is pretty good on Sigilyph here, and it gives options. And then you've got Charizard as well over Silvally. Like, I know he's been bringing Silvally to a lot of the team matchups, but he hasn't actually been bringing it to the match. So obviously it's not filling in the role he needs it to be. It's just kind of being slapped on.
Yeah.
So.
And then let's look. You have the, I guess Fairy type is kind of covered by Clef.
Yeah, I mean, a defensive Fairy is perfectly fine.
And you have Steel with Magneton. So yeah, so you're decent. You've got decent stuff there.
It's just always been missing that fire type, and I think Silvally is good for like creating whatever type you want, but Charizard could really work, or even Colossal for this team. So
both are good because they both synergize really well. Here's the thing: the ups and downs of both. Right? Let's pros and cons them for a second. Charizard, super flimsy, right? Like gets, you blow on him and he dies. He's very he's like definitely a glass cannon type Pokemon. But you have Clefairy, so you're good there, right? You just need, like, in order to enable him, you need some sort of protection for him. Um, and then he can kind of pop off and sweep. You send off those max airstreams and set up Sun. His special attack goes up. He's taking a little bit of damage every turn from the solar power and maybe a life orb or whatever, but like he's just doing massive damage. Then you have Colossal, who also needs enabling. So both of them need enabling, but you do have Dragapult, which is like the natural synergy for it, right? Since Dragapult can't be picked out, you can always surf. And even if you didn't want to surf, you could also, potentially Aqua Jet with like Kabutops or something.
Yep.
So there's that to activate that steam engine. And if you didn't want to run like a steam engine build with it and like instead just wanted to go Trick Room, you could always do that too. Since Colossal is pretty slow, works in Trick Room as well.
The only issue I have with Colossal is that means he has 2 Mons with a 4 times weakness to ground.
Yeah, the Magneton as well.
Yeah, and the only resistance he has at that point to ground is Sigilyph.
And he already has a lot of rock resistance as well, so Charizard seems pretty solid here overall.
Yeah.
If you wanted to put Colossal on your team, which is solid, you might want to make a couple more trades just to shore that up a little bit, but Charizard kind of just slots right in right now. But maybe has, I don't know, Colossal always is a little bit scarier to me than Charizard, because you always have to respect that steam engine combo.
Yeah. Especially with Dragapult.
Yeah, exactly. And that combo has won the Players Cup. Yeah, like
I mean, this wouldn't be the G-Max version, so you wouldn't be getting the extra Volcalith damage, but I mean, setting Sand is still just as good sometimes because you get a free defense buff to your Kabutops and your
Colossal.
Yeah, Spadaftra buff. So
you're still getting that chip damage from Sand.
Yeah, 1/16 or something over like a 1/8, 1/6, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I think that's all we've got to say on these two.
Yay.
And I believe we have finally reached the end of what will now be a 2-part video series.
Yay.
This has been very long, but I think we've recorded both videos in one go. So thank you all for watching both, if you have. Thank you, Masenko, for staying the entire time and keeping it going with me. Thank you, Bryan, for being there in the background to listen in and chime in when needed. And thanks to Oddball for joining us for as long as he could.
Yes, of course. All right, guys.
And I will see you all next time.
Peace out, guys.
Goodbye.